Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris Schaub and I provide listening notes for classic jazz albums. Today we have Eric Dolphy, Out to Lunch on Blue Note. If you like the channel, please like, comment, subscribe. Subscribing helps me get more reach on YouTube, and my mission here is to just get more people to listen to jazz and to intentionally listen to music and not just have it be background in their earbuds. So help me by subscribing, and also click the notification bell so that you get notified every time I produce a new video. Trying to do 3 a week, so we'll see. So Out to Lunch, Eric Dolphy, 1964 on Blue Note. This is a reissue. It's one of the classic vinyl series for Blue Note with Kevin Gray at Coherent Audio doing these right from the original master tapes. They sound fantastic. If you want to listen to it on vinyl and you can't find an original, these are great. They sound really good. And they're an all analog stage, meaning he took them from the analog tapes that they were originally recorded on. He didn't make a digital capture. He went right from analog, did it the old-fashioned way, and then went right to a vinyl pressing process. And that way you're kind of getting sort of what makes vinyl unique. There are a lot of things I won't buy on vinyl because they were recorded digitally, and I just want to hear them on a CD or on a stream, because what's the point of listening to it unless they've gone to the trouble of mastering it for vinyl? If you're not into vinyl, I have links in the description of the video to stream it via SongWhip, so you can stream it on Spotify. It makes it really easy. The link's right there. You can also purchase the vinyl. There's a link to purchase it from Blue Note, along with the notes for this talk, as well as the link to the Wikipedia article for this album. And I've got links to some YouTube videos that are really great for this record. There's a video of Eric Dolphy playing with John Coltrane, one with an interview with his parents, an interview after a show he did in Sweden, and also a video of him playing with Charles Mingus. So some pretty cool videos out there. So I try to pull them together for you in the notes. This was recorded by Rudy Van Gelder, again at the Van Gelder Studios in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, and again on Blue Note, Kevin Gray, Coherent Audio, Remastered. So the personnel on this recording are Eric Dolphy, alto saxophone, bass clarinet, and flute, so he's a multi-instrumentalist. Freddie Hubbard on trumpet, Bobby Hutcherson on vibes, Richard Davis on bass, and Tony Williams on drums. So some of these people we've encountered before on previous albums. Eric Dolphy was, this is his only recording for Blue Note as a leader. He's on a bunch of other recordings, but as a leader, this is it for Blue Note. He's born in Los Angeles in 1928. Got his first break with Chico Hamilton's band. Then he moved to New York City, and then he played with Mingus for a bunch of years. Sadly, he died of a diabetic coma really young at age 36. Now, I am a type 1 diabetic, so a juvenile diabetic. See my tattoo here, just in case I ever pass out, which I've never done. But I can have a lot of sympathy for this. He was, I guess, in West Germany, and the doctors there, the story goes, thought he was, on drugs or whatever, and he was in a coma, so they just let him kind of lay there and sort of sleep it off, but then he died. So all they had to do was a simple blood test. Back then, the treatments for diabetes weren't so great, but insulin was definitely available, and he could have been saved. So it's very sad that he died needlessly at a very young age. But in the years he was active, he left a lot of great music. So this recording, I'm recording it on my lunch hour, so Out to Lunch is perfect. The liner notes on the back are really interesting. If you get the vinyl and you can actually read them, take some time and go through them. These were written by A.B. Spellman this time. I don't know much about A.B. Spellman, but they're well written, and they do describe some of the music and some of the historical stuff that's going on at the time of this recording. The album cover, interesting. The album cover was designed by Reid Miles. It's a photo of a "We'll Be Back" sign with 7 hands on the clock. Interesting. Reid Miles did a bunch of covers for Blue Note, like the Dexter Gordon Go and a few others. So, he's a graphic designer at the time, and he put his stamp on a lot of these Blue Note recordings. This is a landmark album in avant-garde jazz. So Dolphy's coming up at the same time. You have John Coltrane, you have Ornette Coleman, and jazz is starting to go from the constraints of bebop and hard bop And you're starting to get people experimenting with freedom, where, like in Ornette's case, you have him doing recordings where he's just, okay, here's what the general musical idea, and let's just do what we're going to do. It's completely free. The instruments are just playing off of each other. Whereas in this case, Eric Dolphy is definitely experimenting with free in some places on the record. And he's also got a lot of compositional things going on. So I think the way I would sum it up is the difference between avant-garde and free jazz is that free jazz is part of avant-garde, but the avant-garde movement encompasses things that I would consider like 20th century classical composition techniques, that you would hear in classical music, as well as in painting. There's avant-garde and literature and in dance. And so it's a whole movement in avant-garde in like a military sense. It's the forward leading troops. It's the advanced guard. So it's kind of like the people that are pushing the boundaries are the avant-garde. They're breaking the traditions. They're breaking the norms. But this isn't a free jazz album, though there is free playing on it quite a bit. Um, it's more compositional than that, but the compositions are very avant-garde. So they're trying to break away from the constraints of hard bop, and which Ornette Coleman was doing as well, and John Coltrane in his own way. So Dolphy is a pioneer of this avant-garde jazz along with Coleman. This recording session, there's a note that Bobby Hutcherson, which is the vibe player, we'll get to that in a second. He recalled that I guess the original trumpeter on the session, Eddie Armour, left the session and refused to play because he was sort of like, I don't like that. And there's a similar quote where Miles Davis says, Eric Dolphy can play, I'm paraphrasing, but I just don't like the way he plays. So Dolphy's again kind of a polarizing figure, even though he played with Mingus and John Coltrane. He's not as polarizing as Ornette Coleman, but he's definitely doing things on his instrument that if you have a more traditional sensibility about how jazz should sound, you might have a problem with it. I think it's refreshing. It's just like a breeze that comes in and goes, whoa, what is that? I mean, it's really a breath of fresh air, especially if you've been listening to a lot of hard bop, which I've been doing lately. You put this on and it's like, okay, right, okay, press clear on the calculator, reset your brain, and this is something new. Eric Dolphy, just as a side note, does appear on Ornette Coleman's Free Jazz, the second album, on the second side. So he's a member of that effort. And other things, Tony Williams is on this record. Tony Williams just turned 18, the drummer. So like I said, he'd been playing with people. Everybody knew who he was. He was the up and coming hotshot kid. He was just blowing everybody away where he played. And so he's 18 years old on this, and his playing is just stellar. You can hear him doing things where he doesn't, the quote is, he doesn't keep time. He actually keeps a pulse. So instead of just feeling like he's got to be restricted to keeping time, he keeps the pulse moving, but he might be breaking the time up quite a bit. And that's one of the things you'll hear on these songs, is that the band sounds very free, but they're very in control. And a lot of that has to do with Tony Williams. He's not ever out of control. He's always in control of what he's doing, even though it might sound very free. He has a lot of facilities. So Dolphy moved to Europe right after this recording, and it says in the liner notes, "I'm on my way to Europe to live for a while. Why? Because I can get more work there playing my own music, and because if you try to do anything different in this country, people put you down for it." So that's a little bit of what I'm talking about. I mean, he's dealing with racism, and he's dealing with the time that he lived in, but he's also dealing with, he's trying to break the boundaries, and people here aren't always having it. So unfortunately, when he moved to Europe, that's where he eventually did die in the hospital. So it's a very sad thing. Let's get to the tracks on the album. Side A starts with Hat and Beard. Hat and Beard is a reference to how Thelonious Monk would wear a hat and had his beard. So that was the inspiration for the title. The bass starts it off with a repeating phrase, and then like a little interlude, and then Dolphy doubles on the bass clarinet. So this is an instrument, it's not real common in jazz. It's a difficult instrument to play, and he really makes great use of it. It's a really nice texture for jazz. Notice the free time concept on the drums, a lot of non-functional harmony, which we've talked about. Very avant-garde. And notice how the vibes. So Bobby Hutcherson is the vibe player. Vibes instead of piano. This recording does not have a piano player. So the vibes are giving a more open, airy tone, and it gives Eric Dolphy a space, I think, to be a little bit more creative and a little less locked down, because the piano has a way of grounding the group, and this doesn't isn't quite as heavy as that. It's a little lighter touch. Um, it opens in a 5/4 time, 5 beats to the measure with the quarter note getting the beat, so 5/4, and then it shifts into 9/4 if you want to try to count it out. But I really wouldn't do that. Just try to feel the ebb and flowing of it. Okay, so the next track is Something Sweet, Something Tender. It's an angular ballad with a very nice opening interlude, and then it kind of shifts into a ballad form. It's very composed. It's very modern and avant-garde, but it's one of the more hard bop sounding, like it could be placed in that era, but just the way Dolphy's taken the melody, you're like, it doesn't sound like what I've heard before. Notice the bowed bassing, the bowed bass techniques by Richard Davis. That's where he's got the bow, and instead of plucking the notes, he's bowing the strings. And there's a lot of duets with the bowed bass and the bass clarinet on this. It's a very effective texture. The third track on side A is Gasolini, kind of hard bop-ish with an avant-garde melody twist. Notice the flute. So he's playing, Dolphy's playing the flute on this one. This is named after classical flautist Severino Gazzoloni. And the band plays together for the initial 13 bar head, and then it's pretty free after that. So there's a composed thing that Dolphy brought to the session, but then he told people just to stretch out, and you can hear that effect. Side B, Out to Lunch, the title track of the album, opens side B, opens with a drum interlude in the beginning, which I think is kind of reminiscent of Art Blakey's Blues March intro, maybe a nod to that by Tony. Lots of broken time, but Williams keeps that pulse. So try to hear, if the time isn't real strict and straight, or like isn't real even in the meter, try to hear how he's keeping it going with like an internal pulse kind of a concept. Because otherwise the music can drag and be kind of uninteresting, but it never is. And the last track on side B is Straight Up and Down. Eric Dolphy says that it's like a drunk walking, like a person who's drunk walking, very free. So this might be a little challenging to listen to. Might put you off at first if you're not used to some of the sounds. I mean, he's definitely squeaking and making sound effects and doing things that other people wouldn't do, and definitely made some of his contemporaries wonder what he was doing. But this is one of the great jazz records. And I think if you listen to it a couple times, you'll start to get it. And it's really nice to put on and be outside and just kind of experience like a nice open space hearing this music. I don't know why, but I actually do like it on headphones. I streamed it the other day in the park, and I thought it was really great. So Eric Dolphy, Out to Lunch. If you enjoy the channel, like, comment, and subscribe. Please subscribe, and hope to see you next time.